Welcome to English Rise. This channel is not about rushing English. It is about understanding yourself while improving your listening, speaking, and thinking skills. If you feel stuck in life, repeating the same days, the same habits, and the same thoughts, this video was made for you. Here, we use calm storytelling and clear English to help you grow, both mentally and linguistically. If this way of learning English helps you, consider subscribing and continuing this journey with us. Now take a breath, and let's begin. Part 1. Change feels painful. But staying the same is worse. Most people avoid change because it hurts. Change creates uncertainty. It challenges identity. It forces responsibility. But what many people don't realize is that staying the same also causes pain. Just a quieter kind. It is the pain of repetition, the pain of knowing you could do more, the pain of watching time pass while nothing inside you changes. This pain doesn't scream, it whispers. And because it whispers, people ignore it. Part 2. The slow suffering of comfortable routines. Comfort creates predictability. Predictability feels safe. But safety slowly becomes stagnation. When every day looks the same, your mind stops expanding. Your emotions become dull. Your ambition weakens. You are not exhausted. You are understimulated. This is why people feel tired even when their lives are easy. The mind needs challenge to stay alive. Without it, you decay quietly. Part 3. Why staying the same destroys self-respect. Self-respect is not built by success alone. It is built by movement. Every time you avoid growth, you send yourself a message. I don't trust myself to handle more. Over time, this message becomes belief. You begin to doubt your strength. You lower expectations. You settle. And settling slowly erodes who you are. Part 4. The pain people don't talk about. This pain has no dramatic moment. It shows up at night, in silence, in reflection. It appears as regret, as frustration, as a quiet sadness you can't explain. You are not unhappy because life is hard. You are unhappy because life is unchanging. The human mind is designed to evolve. When it doesn't, it suffers. Part 5. Why fear of change is often fear of identity loss. Change threatens the version of you that feels familiar, even if that version is unhappy. Staying the same feels safer than becoming unknown. But identity is not meant to be preserved. It is meant to be expanded. Growth does not erase who you are. It reveals who you can become. Part 6. The cost of waiting for the right time. Most people don't refuse change. They postpone it. One day. Later. When things are easier. But time doesn't wait for readiness. Every delay strengthens inertia. Every delay makes change heavier. The longer you stay still, the harder movement becomes. Part 7. How stagnation affects your mind and language. When your life is repetitive, your thinking becomes repetitive. This affects how you learn, how you speak, how you express yourself. This is why many people feel stuck not only in life, but in English. Growth in language follows growth in mindset. Movement sharpens thinking. Challenge activates learning. Part 8. The moment you realize comfort is not peace. Peace feels light. Comfort feels heavy. Peace energizes. Comfort numbs. When you confuse comfort with peace, you stop growing. Real peace comes from progress, not from avoidance. Part 9. The first step is not big. It is honest. Change doesn't start with dramatic action. It starts with truth. I am not where I want to be. I am avoiding discomfort. I am staying the same because it feels easier. Honesty breaks stagnation. Part 10. Why small discomforts save you from big regrets. Small daily challenges prevent large, lifelong regrets. Speaking when it's uncomfortable. Practicing when motivation is low. Choosing effort over ease. These small actions compound. They create momentum. They rebuild self-respect. They restore meaning. Part 11. The invisible weight of staying the same. Staying the same rarely feels painful in the beginning. That is what makes it so dangerous. At first, it feels calm, predictable, safe. You wake up, follow the same routines, speak the same words, avoid the same risks. Life becomes organized, manageable, and emotionally flat. But over time, an invisible weight begins to form. You may not notice it immediately, because nothing is wrong on the surface. Your life still works. Bills get paid, days pass, conversations happen. Yet internally, something starts to tighten. You feel tired without doing much. You feel irritated without knowing why. You feel restless, even in moments that should feel peaceful. This weight is not stress. It is not exhaustion. It is the psychological burden of not moving forward. The human mind was not designed to remain static. When growth stops, energy turns inward. And when energy turns inward for too long, it becomes frustration, anxiety, and quiet dissatisfaction. Part 12. How comfort slowly drains meaning from your life. Comfort feels like relief, but it comes with a hidden cost. Comfort removes friction, and friction is what gives life depth. When everything is easy, the mind stops engaging fully. There is no challenge to sharpen your focus, no resistance to activate your strength. Days blur together. You are not unhappy enough to change, but not fulfilled enough to feel alive. This is why comfort often leads to emptiness. Not because comfort is evil, but because comfort without growth disconnects you from purpose. Purpose is not found in ease. It is built through effort, tension, and progress. Without those elements, life feels hollow, even if it looks successful from the outside. Part 13. The deep psychological pain of unlived potential. There is a specific kind of pain that has nothing to do with failure. It is the pain of knowing you could be more and choosing day after day not to be. This pain does not scream. It whispers. It shows up as a sense of regret without a clear memory, a dissatisfaction you can't explain, a feeling that you are watching your own life instead of living it. Your mind keeps a silent record of your potential. Every time you avoid growth, that record grows heavier. And even if you try to ignore it, your subconscious never forgets. Unlived potential becomes internal pressure. And pressure, when ignored, turns into emotional fatigue. Part 14. Why time does not heal stagnation. It hardens it. Many people believe that time will somehow fix their discomfort. They think, I'll feel different next year. This is just a phase. Eventually I'll change. But stagnation does not dissolve with time. It adapts. The longer you stay the same, the more your identity reshapes itself around limitation. Excuses begin to feel logical. Avoidance begins to feel natural. You stop saying, I can't yet, and start saying, I'm just not like that. This is one of the most dangerous shifts of all. Because once limitation becomes identity, growth starts to feel like betrayal of who you are. Part 15. How staying the same destroys self-trust from the inside. Self-trust is not built by success alone. It is built by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, I'll practice later, I'll try next time, and then you don't, a small fracture forms in your self-trust. One fracture is invisible. Hundreds of them become a collapse. Over time, your mind stops believing your intentions. Motivation fades, not because you are lazy, but because your subconscious no longer trusts your words. This is how people lose confidence without a single dramatic failure. They slowly teach their own mind not to believe them. Part 16. The silent moments when the pain becomes clear. The pain of staying the same rarely appears in busy moments. It appears in silence, late at night, during long walks, in moments when distractions fade. That is when the question surfaces. Is this really all I'm going to be? You may not have a clear answer, but the discomfort itself is meaningful. It is your mind recognizing misalignment. It is awareness trying to wake you up. Ignoring this feeling does not make it disappear. It only pushes it deeper. Part 17. Why the mind prefers familiar pain over unknown growth. The mind is wired for survival, not fulfillment. Familiar pain feels safe because it is predictable. Unknown growth feels dangerous because it requires uncertainty. So the mind chooses the pain it knows over the risk it doesn't. This is why people stay in situations that slowly drain them. The pain is quiet, controlled, familiar. Growth, on the other hand, demands exposure. It asks you to fail, to be seen, to feel uncomfortable. But without that discomfort, life remains small. Part 18. How movement, not motivation, breaks stagnation. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. But readiness rarely comes first. Movement creates readiness. Small actions begin to rewire your identity. Showing up even when it's uncomfortable. Practicing even when you feel inadequate. Speaking even when your voice shakes. Each action rebuilds self-trust. Self-trust restores energy. Energy reignites purpose. This is how stagnation begins to crack. Part 19. Why growth makes life feel alive again. When growth returns, something shifts instantly. Your mind becomes sharper. Your days regain meaning. Your sense of direction strengthens. Not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes honest. You are no longer avoiding yourself. Growth does not remove pain. It replaces empty pain with meaningful effort. And that changes everything. Part 20. The moment you realize nothing is actually holding you back. At some point, a disturbing realization begins to surface. It is not sudden. It does not arrive as a dramatic epiphany. It comes quietly. You start to notice that the obstacles you once blamed are no longer real. The lack of time, the lack of confidence, the lack of opportunity. They exist, but they are no longer the true reason. The truth is heavier. You are not being held back. You are holding yourself still. This realization hurts more than external failure because it removes the comfort of excuses. If no one is stopping you, then responsibility returns to where it belongs. And responsibility is uncomfortable because it means the pain you feel is not caused by the world, but by the distance between who you are and who you know you could be. Part 21. Why avoidance feels like rest, but is actually decay. Avoidance often disguises itself as self-care. You tell yourself, I need a break. I'm protecting my peace. I'll come back when I feel ready. And sometimes rest is necessary, but avoidance feels different. Avoidance drains you instead of restoring you. Avoidance leaves a residue of guilt and dissatisfaction. Avoidance creates a constant low-level tension in the background of your mind. That tension is the cost of postponing growth. True rest prepares you to move forward. Avoidance keeps you frozen. The mind knows the difference, even if you pretend not to. Part 22. How stagnation changes the way you see yourself. Staying the same does not only affect your future, it reshapes your self-image in the present. Slowly, silently, your internal language changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone becoming and start seeing yourself as someone maintaining. Maintenance feels safe, but it is psychologically limiting. When your identity shifts from growth to preservation, your world shrinks. You avoid new challenges because they threaten the fragile balance you've built. You stop imagining different versions of yourself. Not because you don't want them, but because imagining them hurts. It reminds you of what you are not doing. Part 23. The uncomfortable truth about why change feels heavy. Change is not heavy because it requires effort. Change is heavy because it forces honesty. When you change, you are forced to confront what you avoided, what you delayed, what you tolerated for too long. Growth exposes past compromises, and that can feel overwhelming. This is why many people prefer staying the same, even when it hurts. Stagnation allows you to avoid confronting your own history. But avoidance does not erase the past. It simply extends its influence into the future. Part 24. Why the pain of staying the same grows over time. The pain of stagnation compounds. At first, it is subtle discomfort. Then, it becomes frustration. Later, it turns into quiet despair. Not dramatic despair, but the kind that numbs motivation and dulls ambition. This happens because time amplifies awareness. The longer you stay the same, the clearer the contrast becomes between where you are and where you could have been. That contrast is painful, and no amount of distraction can fully silence it. Part 25. The moment stagnation turns into regret. Regret does not appear overnight. It forms slowly, through accumulation. Each postponed action, each abandoned intention, each time you chose familiarity over courage. One day you realize the cost was not comfort. It was time. Time spent maintaining a version of yourself that no longer fits. That realization often becomes the turning point, or the breaking point. Part 26. Why action feels scary when you've stayed still too long. When movement finally becomes unavoidable, it feels terrifying. Not because the action itself is difficult, but because your nervous system has adapted to stillness. Growth shocks the system. Your heart races. Your mind resists. Your inner voice doubts everything. This reaction is not weakness. It is conditioning. The longer you stay still, the louder fear becomes when you try to move. But fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal of transition. Part 27. How small movements begin to dissolve the pain. The pain of staying the same does not disappear all at once. It fades through motion. Small, deliberate actions begin to loosen the internal tension. Speaking when you usually stay silent. Practicing when you usually postpone. Choosing discomfort intentionally. Each action sends a message to your mind. I am no longer avoiding myself. That message is powerful. It restores integrity between who you think you are and how you behave. And integrity is where confidence is born. Part 28. The strange relief that comes from doing the hard thing. There is a quiet relief that follows effort, even when the result is imperfect, even when progress is slow. That relief comes from alignment. You are no longer split between intention and action. You are no longer carrying the weight of inaction. Life feels heavier when you avoid growth than when you face it. This is one of the greatest paradoxes of change. Part 29. Why growth makes you feel more like yourself. As you move forward, something unexpected happens. You don't feel like you're becoming someone else. You feel like you're returning to yourself, the version of you that wanted more, the version that believed effort mattered, the version that felt alive through challenge. Growth does not add something artificial to your life. It removes what was suffocating you. Part 30. when you realize growth was never about motivation. At this stage, something important becomes clear. Growth was never about waiting to feel motivated. It was never about confidence appearing first. It was never about the perfect moment. Those ideas kept you stuck. Real growth begins when you act despite uncertainty. You start moving not because you feel ready, but because staying the same has become heavier than trying. This shift changes everything. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop asking permission from comfort. You move because you understand that stagnation is no longer an option. Part 31. The identity shift that happens when you choose movement. Once you commit to movement, even slowly, your identity starts to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but consistently. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying and begin seeing yourself as someone doing. That identity shift is subtle but powerful. Your decisions become clearer. Your excuses lose strength. Your self-respect begins to rebuild. This is when the pain of staying the same starts to dissolve. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become stronger. Part 32. Why discipline feels better than comfort in the long run. Comfort promises relief. Discipline delivers freedom. Comfort numbs discomfort temporarily. Discipline removes the source of it. When you discipline yourself to grow, even in small ways, you create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence reduces fear. The cycle reverses. Instead of comfort leading to stagnation, effort begins to lead to peace. Part 33. How staying the same quietly damages your self-trust. One of the deepest wounds of stagnation is the loss of self-trust. Every promise you break to yourself matters. Every time you say tomorrow and don't act, your mind remembers. Not consciously, but emotionally. Over time, you stop believing yourself. That's why starting again feels hard. It's not laziness, it's broken trust. The only way to rebuild it is through consistent action, no matter how small. Part 34. Why change restores dignity, not just results. Growth is not only about outcomes, it is about dignity. When you choose effort, you regain the feeling that your life is in your hands. When you face discomfort, you restore respect for yourself. Results will come later, but dignity comes immediately, and that alone makes the pain of growth worth it. Part 35. The final truth about the pain of staying the same. The pain of staying the same does not disappear on its own. It either transforms into growth or hardens into regret. There is no neutral ground. Stagnation feels safe, but it is silently expensive. Growth feels uncomfortable, but it is honest. And honesty is the foundation of a life you can stand behind. Final reflection. If this message resonated with you, it's likely because you already know the truth. You were never broken. You were never incapable. You were simply staying where you no longer belonged. Growth does not ask you to become someone else. It asks you to stop betraying who you already are. If you want more content like this, content that helps you grow mentally while improving your English listening and thinking skills, consider subscribing to the English Rise channel. Here, English is not just a language. It's a tool for clarity, discipline, and personal evolution. And remember, the pain of growth passes. The pain of staying the same stays with you. Choose wisely.